For our demonstration of using an LDAP enumeration tool, let's use JExplorer. We've already got in our lab environment our Windows 2012 server with LDAP services enabled. What we can do is go to our Windows 10 machine, download and install JExplorer, and use it from there. What I'd also like to do is let's go ahead and create at least one additional user account here on our Windows 2012 server that we can use for our queries. See, by default, LDAP is not just going to say, hey, I'll tell you everything I know. If someone has misconfigured an LDAP server and allowed anonymous requests to be made, in that case, it wouldn't even require us to have a username and password associated with those queries. So here in our lab environment running VMware Workstation, we have our Windows 2012 server running. Let's also launch our Windows 10 machine. And let's start off with our own Windows 2012 server. We'll bring that full screen. And up on the right, we'll go to Tools. And from the drop-down, we'll select Active Directory Users and Computers. So let's go down to nuglab.local. Here's a users container. And with the users container selected, let's click on the icon to create a new user. So we'll click on the Create New User icon. And let's create a new user called Lois. Now, many times in Active Directory, somebody will create a specific account just for a specific task. For example, like for LDAP queries. So in this example, let's create a user called Lois. So our login name is Lois at nuglab.local, and we'll click on Next. And let's, for our lab environment, say that the user does not have to change their password and that the password never expires, which, by the way, is not the most secure environment, but it's going to be great for our lab. And for the password, I'm going to put in simple 123, and I'll confirm that as well. And because of the password complexity rules that are in place by default, I used a capital S along with the word simple. And I'm also writing that down because I want to be able to remember that later. And we'll click on Next to continue. And we'll click on Finish. So there we've got this user called Lois. Now, one of the challenges is that there's very specific rights that can be given to a user account that can allow that user to go ahead and do, for example, queries into LDAP. However, a lot of times, I can tell you this based on experience, a lot of times to get something working, they'll take a user and they'll give it too many rights, excessive rights, which, by the way, is a jackpot. If a user has been made a member, for example, of the admin users group and has full rights, that is a fantastic account to compromise because we can use it for further attacks. So for Lois here, if we right-click on Lois and go to Properties, and then we go up to Member Of, let's go ahead and add her to the group called Domain Admins. So I'm going to type in Domain Admins and click on Check Names and then click on OK and click on OK, and the deed is done. That is a user that has way too many rights. So now that we've done that, let's go over to our Windows 10 machine and let's download JExplorer. So here at Windows 10, we'll make it full screen. Let's bring up a browser and let's do a search for JExplorer, and it's spelled JExplorer, and we'll press enter. And jexplorer.org is where we want to go. So let's go to Downloads, and we'll click on the link for Precompiled Install Package. And then we'll scroll down, and we'll specify we want the one for Windows. So there's a Windows install package. We'll select that, and we'll let it download. And then we'll go to our Downloads folder, and we'll simply launch it. So there's our Downloads folder. If we scroll down a little bit, there's the JExplorer. So we'll launch that, and we'll click Yes to install, and we'll click on Next. We'll accept everything, next, next, next. And while that's cooking, I'm also going to open up a browser, and I'm also going to download Wireshark to this Windows 10 computer. So to do that, let's go to wireshark.org. I'm going to click on the icon for download, which is this guy right here. And let's install the 64-bit version for Windows. So now that it's downloaded, we can go to our Downloads folder to launch that, or we can just launch it right here. And basically say yes, 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 continue, continue, continue to get Wireshark fully installed on the system as well. Now we have JExplorer and Wireshark installed. Let's go ahead and start up a Wireshark capture by launching Wireshark. We'll go ahead and double click on Ethernet 0 to start the capture. We'll minimize that. So let's click on the Windows icon in the bottom left-hand corner on this Windows 10 system. And let's just type in JX and see what comes up. And the best match, it shows up as JExplorer. So we'll launch JExplorer by clicking on it. Let me maximize that to full screen. And then to connect, we're going to go ahead and use this connect icon up here in the top left-hand corner. So we'll click on connect. It's going to ask us for the host we want to connect to. I'm going to put in 192.168.1.212. That's our Windows 2012 server. We can specify the version of LDAP we're using. LDAP version 3 is the default. There's the default port of 389. And the base DN, let's use DC, which is a directory component equals nuglab, comma, DC equals local. And then for the security, let's go ahead and use Lois's credentials. Username and password, and the username is Lois, and the password for Lois is capital SIMPLE123. And then we'll click on OK. So it says search partially failed, only 12 entries returned, but out of those 12 entries, check this out. We got a boatload of information, including if we go into local nuglab and open up users, here's Lois, there's administrator. If we go up to domain controllers and we expand that, we have one domain controller, that's our Windows 2012 server machine. And all of this is being extracted or pulled up via LDAP. Now, because we have Wireshark running in the background, let's go ahead and stop that capture. It's got like 20,000 packets already. And let's do a search for the well-known port for LDAP. So let's say tcp.port equals, and it is 389, and press enter. So now it's going to limit our output. In fact, let me go to view, and let's also turn off the packet bytes near the bottom, give us a little more real estate to work with. I'll maximize this screen as well. So now the only packets shown in this display filter are packets that include a TCP header at some point, either the source or destination, where that port number is 389. So right here, for example, in packet 14,870, I can see the credential of Lois being used, and before that I see the three-way handshake for the TCP session. And if we right-click on this, and we use the option from Wireshark of follow, and we follow the TCP stream, it'll show us that entire TCP conversation. And right here it shows the username of Lois and the password of simple123. And then down below we have dozens and dozens of pages of the information that was extracted via LDAP from Active Directory, courtesy of the LDAP services, by us using the tool JExplorer over on our Windows 10 system. In this nugget, you and I looked at a tool called JExplorer that's an example of an LDAP enumeration tool. And the reason it was so successful in our environment is because we had a username and password that had the permissions to make those LDAP requests. And even if we started without those permissions, it wouldn't have been too hard to discover the username and password if we had done some type of sniffing or man-in-the-middle attack that allowed us to eavesdrop on the traffic and then simply discover it by watching what went through. And I would encourage you in your lab environment to practice with these tools as well. So have fun with that. Meanwhile, I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.